Hello, this is Steph Houghton, the Irritated American. And what I'm irritated about today is this idea that you can be an anti-Zionist but not an anti-Semite. Now, I admit that there are certain circumstances under which that might conceivably be possible. If, for example, you are Jewish and you take literally the part of the prophecy of Isaiah which says, the zeal of the Lord of hosts shall accomplish this. That this meaning the refoundation of the Jewish state. And therefore you think, well, this secular state is not what God intended. Okay, fair enough. I don't say I don't find it very convincing, but okay. But people who say, oh, they're anti-Zionist but not anti-Semites. I mean, the question is, the Jewish people have a relationship with the land of Israel that goes back thousands of years, and it's, this is where it's not what the Bible says. The Bible says they, sort of made a meandering into Egypt, which may, I guess, be partly true, but it is pretty clear that, in fact, the Jewish people's homeland, the place where they developed as a people, was in fact Israel. And, so to say you're an anti-Zionist, that means you don't believe that the Jewish people have a right to live in the land where their people developed. I mean, they got tossed out and so on and so forth, but why don't they have any right to live there? And to govern themselves, frankly, on democratic principles, really. It's not like they don't let, Christians and Muslims who live in Israel, vote and be part of the Jewish state. Now, and the second part of this is, the fact that the groups that are saying they think that they're the ones who ought to be running Israel-Palestine are, organizations who have an atrocious record, when it comes to Jewish folks. Most of them were founded basically when Jewish people started moving back into that area under the British mandate over Palestine. They were irritated by this. Irritated is a kind way of putting it. But, the fact of the matter is, Hamas, in its very charter, quotes a part of the Quran that literally says that the trees and rocks will cry out so that Jewish people can't hide from being slaughtered. Anyone who thinks that they should be given control over Israel are just, what? How is that even partly, not anti-Semitic? I mean, the fact of the matter is that their very charter, until like 3 years ago when I guess they hired some public relations person who told them this was a bad idea, said that they were, going to engage in genocide against the Jewish people. Now, Hitler, for God's sake, who could be worse than that? But even he didn't say in advance that he wanted to kill the Jewish people. He was like, oh, well, we need to make sure that they don't have an undue influence in German society, blah, 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 blah. But he didn't say, oh, I'm going to just slaughter them all. Hamas does. I mean, oh, they did. They did. Now they have public relations sense. Now they've moved themselves up from, worse than Hitler to, at least in principle, to we're now going to, be disingenuous about this and pretend like we're not going to do in the Jews if we take control of Israel. You can't say that you want to destroy the Jewish state and not be an anti-Semite. I mean, that's just preposterous. It's going to lead to the deaths of millions of Jewish people. That's anti-Semitism. Come on, be serious. And, the other thing is, I hate to bring this up because I don't like the whole, words will harm you, woke bullshit. But the fact of the matter is, these people who talk that way, who are like, oh, words, they're violence. But, they, without even thinking about it, they use the word Palestine. But, the fact of the matter is that this area is known as Palestine because, with the suppression of the Bar Kokhba revolt against German rule in the 2nd century, Roman rule in the 2nd century, after it was crushed and the Romans committed genocide against the people of Judea. I mean, it's one of the worst anti-Jewish genocides in history. And I mean, that's one of those things where it just like, you read the list, you're like, oh my God, like it's like 10 times that people decide they just should slaughter Jewish people. But this is really one of the worst genocides on record against the Jewish people. And so after they had done that, they stopped calling it Judea and started calling it Palestine. I mean, like every time you use the word Palestine, you are making a reference to genocide, to one of the worst genocides against the Jewish people that happened. Like, I don't think I would necessarily bring it up except for the fact that these same people, if you say anything even, slightly out of line, they're like, I mean, come on, be serious. The fact of the matter is that the Jewish people have been, persecuted again and again and again. And, the real fact that is sort of, in this discussion ignored is the fact that Israel is, in a certain sense, a huge ghetto into which most, though not all, of Occidental European Jewry was driven by a series of pogroms which culminated in the Holocaust, God help us, and that basically all of Oriental Jewry has been driven out of the Middle East into Palestine, into Israel, or, somewhere else. They've, escaped to Europe or the United States. But, you just can't, there's just no way of getting around the fact that if you want to destroy Israel, you want to kill a bunch of Jewish people. That's just the facts. You don't have to like that fact, but it is a fact. And for, people to go around pretending that, there's some social justice question about, I mean, the first thing you have to realize when people start talking this way is that, when the nation of Israel was refounded in the 40s, first of all, obviously it was done by international law, so like you can't really be in favor of international law and against the existence of Israel. But second of all, the leaders of the new Jewish state were not like religious bigots. They were like, because history again, the people in Judea who had not been slaughtered had been forcibly converted to Christianity. And, so they were like, well, these are our brothers and sisters who, were also oppressed by the Romans. And, they tried, they wanted to come to some peaceful agreement. And, under the UN agreement that created Israel and the state of Palestine, they agreed to split the country, the territory. But the Arabs just wouldn't put up with that. And so, they launched, an aggressive war, one of a series of aggressive wars. There was the War of Independence, there was the 7 Days War, no, the 7 Days War is later, but, there were about 4 of them where, the Arabs were, wanting to just crush Israel and kill all the Israelis. you just have to be serious. History, things have consequences, and you know, the fact of the matter is, unless you're a Jewish person who thinks that God doesn't want the state of Israel to exist as it now exists, if you're if you're an anti-Zionist, you're an anti-Semite, and you should just go look yourself in the mirror and realize that. I just don't have time for this anymore. Anyway, that's what irritated me today, the 4th day of December. God bless you all. Bye-bye.